selected diets, there's a threefold difference from one person to the next, all right? And one of the questions the nutritional epidemiologists have is that difference in glycemic load predicting who gets diabetes or who has a heart attack? So I'll show you some of those slides later. All right, glycemic load is a mathematical concept, all right? It's a multiplication. So how well does it actually reflect metabolic responses? Well, this paper we've just sent off about a week ago to Diabetes Care. So what we showed, we had 120 single foods that we tested in 1,000 kilojoule portions in 10 people each, all right? So each dot is, again, the average of 10 people. And this is the observed glucose response relative to 1,000 kilojoule portion of pure glucose. So what you can see is glycemic load is a stronger predictor, 0.87, R's 0.87, compared to available carbohydrate. So if you want to know the metabolic response, the glycemic response, use glycemic load, not grams of carbohydrate. What about protein and fat and fiber? Here we've got the same 120 foods, and here on the x-axis is protein in that 1,000 kilojoule portion, so it varied from 0 up to 60 or so grams of protein. And what you can see is that, well, you know, there's an inverse relationship. There's the higher the protein content, the lower the glycemic response. But, you know, the R is not as strong. It's about 0.5. And fiber. Fiber's a real surprise. These are 120 typical foods. In fact, they're the top 120 foods, the top 120 sources of carbohydrate in the American diet, because Harvard told us which 120 foods to test. And as you can see, there's no relationship with fiber. Total fiber, cereal fiber, fruit and vegetable fiber, you name it, there's no relationship. All right, glycemic load is also a really good predictor of insulinemia. So this is one of the questions about the glycemic index. Does it predict insulin responses? And the answer is yes. So the multiplication of carbohydrate times glycemic index is your best predictor of postprandial insulinemia. All right, so the next part of my presentation is all about the glycemic index and its use as a clinical tool. So what I've been doing there is just proving that it does do what we think it does, that it does predict the glucose response to single foods, and in other studies we've shown it predicts the glucose response to mixed meals. So it's been shown to improve glucose control in diabetes, it's been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, it's been shown to be associated with reduced risk of type 2 diabetes and reduced risk of CVD, and some evidence that I'll show you shortly, it seems to improve weight control. So this is the first study, and I've picked the studies that are published in the best journals, the highest impact journals, with the largest number of subjects. So here we've got 210 subjects studied over 24 weeks. It's one of David Jenkins' studies published at the end of 2008. And he compared it with the best practice ADA, American Diabetes Association, high fiber diet. All right, it is high fiber. It's got brown everything. They called it the brown diet. So it was brown pasta, brown bread, brown rice. Okay, so it's best practice at the moment. And yet we still saw a better HbA1c reduction in those that were following the low GI diet. So this one might have had a tiny little bit more fiber, but not enough to make a difference. And they didn't get told you have to eat brown everything. You know, it was a much more palatable diet for most people. I meant to say too, they also found that was a greater reduction in the use of medications in the low GI group. They also showed a rise in HDL cholesterol in the low GI group compared to a fall in HDL cholesterol in the conventional diet group. This is a meta-analysis. Are you used to looking at forest plots?